Hello everyone, this is Ulises Vega, real estate broker in the state of California, and I'm going to go over with the meats and potatoes as to what the NAR settlement lawsuit represents. I'm going to go over why did that lawsuit happen. I'm going to go over why did the National Association of Realtors decided to settle the lawsuit, and I'm going to go over what changes are coming to the industry. There's a lot of panic, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of news that aren't really just opinion from somebody that's not a real estate practitioner like yours truly. So I'm going to shed some light as to what we are going to be doing and dealing with moving forward. So number one, why did the NAR lawsuit originally happen? Well, first of all, majority of sellers unfortunately felt that they were not being represented properly. That the industry as a whole were colluding to fix compensations. In other words, a lot of real estate agents in the industry were only showing houses that were paying them a higher commission and potentially steering buyers to more favorable properties that would have otherwise made them more money. In other words, buyers were technically not looking at all of the inventory that they could have or should have if all of the listings were offering the same compensation. Now, why did NAR settle the lawsuit? The original lawsuit was actually $1.7 billion. They settled for around $415 million, but it will not go into effect until mid-July, early August. So again, it's not official. Now, what are some of the changes that are coming to the real estate industry as a whole? Well, number one, again, the settlement is not final, so let's not panic. Let's not create more uncertainty. Let's educate ourselves so that we can educate our consumers and we can educate our community. The broker co-op, or what was used to be called broker commissions, is now going to be called concessions. Buyer agent concessions are still going to be allowed. The terms of the co-op cannot be advertised on the MLS. The terms of the co-op could be listed elsewhere, like the broker's website, potentially social media, but check with your broker of record. Buyer-broker agreements are going to be required. So what is a buyer-broker agreement? A buyer-broker agreement is that, an agreement between the brokerage and the buyer. Now, you're going to have that in place. It's like a listing agreement for buyers. And we are going to have to disclose what the compensation for the buyer agent is going to be. And we're going to have to disclose that to the buyers up front. Before, we as real estate practitioners would get paid based on what the MLS dictated. So if that listing said that commission is going to be 2% or 2.5% or 3%, that's what we as real estate practitioners representing the buyer would get. Well, now, if this lawsuit is settled and is official somewhere in July or August, we're not going to be able to advertise on the MLS commission to be this much. So now, buyer agents are going to have to pick up the phone and call the listing agents to find out what the compensation is going to be. So we as an industry are going to have to do what we should have done from day one, which is show our buyers every listing regardless of what the commission was going to be. Changes bring opportunity. So if you're a real estate agent, whether you're newer, and you're feeling some sort of way, you're feeling like your business is going to be affected, embrace change. This is going to force real estate agents to really level up and polish and sharpen their skills. Now, what does it mean to you as a potential seller? Some of the things that were being said was that prior to all of this madness happening, and again, this didn't start a day or two ago. This actually started approximately 8 years ago. But now it just erupted into all this madness. So what is going to have to happen is now we're going to have to disclose the concessions to the buyer's agent. So if somebody's watching this video, they want to sell their house, Commissions are going to be negotiated as always, but here's where it gets interesting and where communication is going to have to be super, super transparent. Somebody's going to say, Ulysses, I'm not going to pay you 5 or 6% commission. That's fine. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I charge this. Well, that's all I'm going to pay. Okay, great. If you don't want to pay a concession, buyer agent that brings the buyer, you are going to be eliminating 80% of the buyers out there. So can buyer agents still get paid by bringing a buyer? Absolutely. It just cannot be disclosed on the MLS. Now, what if the listing agent says, I'm only going to pay 1% commission? Buyer agents are going to have to deal with that. And if you want to get a higher compensation, most likely the buyer is going to have to pick up the tab. And you have to disclose that at the moment you do the buyer consultation. And a lot of things that I've been hearing online is, well, the buyer compensation, we can just add it to the loan. Yes and no. Let's not speculate. Because at the end of the day, if the rates are already challenging and we stack up more cost, the buyer potentially may not be able to afford that payment. They may not be able to have that upfront money in order to close on the house. And another thing that you may or may not know is that if you're representing a veteran, which normally buys a house with no money down, guess what? Buyers that are using a VA loan cannot pay buyer commissions. So how do we still represent our beloved veterans? You can call the listing agent and negotiate a concession of 2% for the buyer agent commission that otherwise is now going to be called a concession. So again, we get paid, we as real estate practitioners get paid based on our ability to solve other people's problems. So if you're not used to talking and picking up the phone and calling the listing agent, and you're doing everything via text or via email, you're probably not going to last in this business. Agents that are doing this part-time without a true intention of doing this full-time and really commit, unfortunately, this may not be the industry for you. And why did NAR settle? Well, one, if you settle, court expenses are going to be way less than if you drag a lawsuit. And you mitigate, you move forward, and you move on and learn from that experience. And again, what are some of the changes that are coming? The settlement is not final. Broker co-ops are still permitted and will still be permitted. The terms of the co-op cannot be listed on the MLS. The terms of the co-op can be listed elsewhere. Buyer-broker agreements are going to be required on every buyer representation transaction. And last but not least, real estate is not going to go away. People are still going to buy houses, sellers are still going to sell, and we're still going to have representation of sellers and buyers. So don't panic, get educated, and if you have any further questions, I'd love to connect with you, whether you're a potential buyer, potential seller, or a real estate practitioner looking to take your business to the next level.